So tonight we're going to continue our seed bead exploration, and by creating some earrings. And as you can see, Indy, who is my teaching assistant, is just flying in and out. So I'm just going to set up my other camera here and switch over. So here we are. So what we're going to create is a pair of earrings. And the technique we're doing is called Peyote. And these are delicate beads. They are a cylinder bead as opposed to round. And as you can see, they fit together just like a fabric, and they're wonderful. They are small. However, as you can see, I've got some big beads here that are in the same shape. I'm going to be demoing using these so you'll be able to see it. But I'm going to do exactly the same as what we're doing. I think everyone has your written instructions, and you know, everything is there step by step. So if you happen to be doing it later, then you'll have this to fall back on. So, all right, so what do we start? What do we need? Well, we definitely need a couple colors of beads. These are size 11 delicas, and just as a reminder, a delica is a cylinder bead. So it's not round, it's round this way, but if you think back to some high school geometry, it's a cylinder. It doesn't have the round shoulders. It's sort of like, it's a tube, basically. So the delicate beads are very small. There's a lot you can do with them, and you can create patterns with them. We're just going to do stripes. That'll be a good introduction. Thread, I'm going to use KO thread. It is a Japanese beading thread. The only place you really see the thread color is along the edge. So don't worry about the color of thread. You also need some kind of a drop bead. These are Swarovski crystals. They're briolets, and they dangle. They just have a really nice dangle on them. And you also need a couple of jump rings. That's this little guy, and then your ear wires. Okay, so
can I ask a question? Sorry, it's
yes,
Lee.
of course.
What made you choose co-thread? Because last time you did a project, you used henna thread.
Henna has a lot more stretch. To be honest, the KO, the Miyuki threads, there's Toho 1G, and henna are pretty well interchangeable. For a small project like this, it's not a huge issue.
Thank
so for some of the stuff that requires a little bit more stretch or a little bit more give, then I would use a more stretchy threads like a henna. Let me just pull something out so you can see. Okay, this is another piece that I use henna for. It requires a little more stretch. It has tension on it. This doesn't have any tension. It's simply a straight piece. So your basic thread would work just perfectly for something like this.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Frequently I choose threads based on color because they are so interchangeable. So that's what we need. And of course you need a beading needle. This is, I think it's a size 11. You want something that will comfortably go through your size 11 beads. And if you were with us last week, we talked about that you can match up the size of your needle to the size of the bead. So a size 11 bead would work well with a size 11 needle. Okay, let's set this aside. As I say, I'm going to use these much bigger beads so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to use a heavier thread and a different kind of needle. So our first thing is to create this little bit of beading. Okay, it is 6 beads wide. This is what they call even count peyote. Even count because it's got an even number of beads. This project is using 6 beads. And it's actually very easy to do. because you're using small beads, it can be finicky, but the technique itself is actually quite easy. So what we're going to do, if you have your delicate beads and working along with me, just pour out a couple of puddles of two colors. You can all do this all in one color too if you wanted to. But what we're going to do is pick up 6 beads because we're doing the full width. To do the pattern like this, I'm going to use the gray and the purple, the gray being what's in silver and the purple being what's in black. So it doesn't matter which side you read from because it is a mirror image. I'm going to start with the gray. So 1 gray, and I'm just reading across. Purple, 2 gray, because there's 2, remember, see there's 2 silver there together? A purple and another gray. You'll notice that this is offset. In other words, they're not in a line, but this is what we're starting with first. Okay, so how many people are stitching along with me? Just go ahead and say me.
I'm doing.
Okay, I
Me.
see 2 people.
Me.
Me, okay, so good. Wonderful. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to slide them off my needle and take them down, and you want to leave about 8 inches. We're going to use the tail to create one of these loops. So leave yourself about 6 or 8 inches, a good 8 inches. I frequently, now I'm left-handed, so if you're right-handed, you're going to be my mirror image, okay? What I frequently do is hold the tail in my hand and just sort of wrap it around my finger, and that helps me keep it in my hand a little bit like that. Okay. Now I'm going to now do the next row, and this is where most people have difficulty. Why don't you watch me first, and I'll take it back and we can do it as many times as necessary. I'm going to pick up my first color, which is in my case, gray. I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to stitch into the second bead from this end where I'm working. And I'm just going to stitch into that bead and pull it through. So I'm starting with bead 2. And what happens is that the bead I just picked up sits on top of the first bead, just like that. Okay. The next bead I'm going to pick up is going to sit right here. So I'm going to pick up another gray bead. And I'm going to stitch into, we're stitching into every other bead. So I stitched into the purple. I'm going to miss this bead, and I'm going to stitch into this bead, which is the 4th bead from where I start, from where I'm stitching. So in through there, like that. And I'm going to pull through. And now I have my second gray bead sitting on top of another gray bead, just like that. Okay, our next bead happens to be a purple bead because I want a purple bead to sit right on top of this purple. So I'm going to skip the purple bead. Remember, we're stitching into every other bead right now. I've stitched into this one. I'm now going to skip the purple and stitch into the last gray bead. And when you finish the last bead, you should have it looking like that. I'll just pause here, let everyone catch up. Okay, I think I'll zoom in it just a little bit there. Okay. Move that out of the way. Okay, any questions so far? We're good? I guess we're okay. We're good. All right. So now we were holding it like this. I'm going to flip the work. So now you're going to stitch back in the other direction. So rather than stitching backwards like this, just flip the work over so that you can stitch in the direction that's comfortable for you. Now it gets really easy here. You notice how some beads are up and some beads are down? We don't have to worry about every other bead because the bead is going to tell us. What we want are all the beads, all the gray beads to stack one on top of another, not that one, and all the purple beads to stack one on top of another. So what color do we pick up? We pick up the one that's on the bottom. And this time we're going to stitch into the first sticky uppy bead and pull through. And that gray bead is now sitting on top of another gray bead. We want to pick up another bead. It's going to go into this space, and that's going to be gray. So we pick up a gray, and we stitch into the next sticky uppy bead, which is this one, and pull through. And of course, if you have thread, it means thread likes to get tangled. Okay, almost done this row. Just get this back in place. Okay. We now want to put a bead in this space. And this space has a purple bead in it. So now we're going to pick up the purple bead and stitch through that last sticky uppy bead. That is peyote stitch. And we're just going to keep doing that until we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beads on either side. So right now we have 2. So we have a bit more to do. So to continue, I turn my work and I stitch back to the other side. Okay, everyone following me so far?
Yes.
We're good? All right. All right. Okay. So just like what we've done before, our first space is going to be here and it's gray. So we pick up a gray bead and go into the first sticky uppy bead, sort of like turrets on a castle. And if that happens, don't worry, it's just your thread being thread. There we go. It just needs to be tightened up. We're good. Our next space is gray, so we pick up a gray bead. Our last space is purple, so we pick up a purple bead. So you'll notice in this pattern, it's gray, gray, purple, no matter what way you're stitching. This particular thread likes to knot around on itself. Okay, so that row is done, and I'm just going to go back and forth. So I cannot believe that fall starts tomorrow. Seemed like yesterday that summer was starting. Okay. And as you can see, it works up fairly quickly. Is anyone having problems working with the little beads? I'm not hearing anyone jumping up and down, so I guess it's okay. All righty then. Yeah, I don't mind if you take your mute off and chat.
I'm sorry, your hands aren't in the screen there. That first
All
bead,
right.
you're going into the first bead or the second bead?
In this case,
When you
let me
start the
take,
rows?
when I start the rows, I'm going into that sticky uppy bead. So it's actually the second bead.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Okay.
it's Lee.
Yes.
If you did not use delicas, but you just used like Toho beads or rounder beads, you'd still get, it might not fit as well together, but you'd still get a good peyote,
Yes,
right?
you would. You would. It'll have a slightly different texture. And it may feel a little bit different. It won't click together. The delicate beads are almost like building blocks. They fit together so well.
Mhm.
But cylinder beads will work just as fine. It'll give you a different look, that's all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So in reference to the previous question, so when I start a row, my first color will be whatever the first color is here, but I'm stitching into the first bead that is sticking up, which happens to be the second bead. Got my hand resting here, so to keep it from moving. Oh, I wonder, there's a knot there. Okay.
Pam, does Indy ever play with the beads?
He has started to come down a little bit. He's actually very skittish. So he doesn't play too much with the beads, although lately he's been playing with my hand as I use a mouse. And just as we were talking, he was playing with the thread as well. So he's getting braver. I've got a knot in here. I'm just going to try and take the knot out. I think I've got plenty of thread. I'll just trim it.
Excuse me, where do I get the step, the paper with all the steps that show me how to do this?
It should have been emailed to you. So what I can do, actually, it should have been emailed to you at least with the, oh, what am I calling it? The reminder.
It was included in today's email with the Zoom link.
Yeah, so it would be there as
Okay.
an attachment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If you want to, if you can't find it, what you can do is email me or
All
just
right.
put on chat privately to me and give me your email.
Okay.
Then I can see about emailing it to you as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so as you do it, you'll see that you are getting wider or longer rather. And right now, when you finish your threads, notice how my threads are all on the same side. When you finish, you're actually going to have a thread on one side, then a thread on another. That's when you know you have an even number of proper number of rows and on the same number on both sides. And of course, if you want to make your earrings longer, you certainly can. This is where you get to design some of your own. If you want them shorter, then you can adjust that as well. Okay. So I've reached as far as I need to go on mine. I'm going to let you guys catch up. How's everyone doing? Any questions? I see Elise is busy stitching away there. Let's see who else. Jacob, you're busy stitching away.
Yeah.
Pam, I have a question.
Love and
Yes.
It's about the instructions, the paper instructions. In the first, yeah. Oh, above that, above the third item, number 2, pick up 6 delica beads in the following order. And it lists 1A, 1B, 2 A's, 1B, 1A. And then what's the second row? Because it then skips to row 3. Do you know, like 2A and 2B is missing any? Is it the same?
What that refers to are the colors here.
Yeah, I know the colors,
But
but there's,
yeah.
it doesn't mention row, the second row. It just goes from the first row.
Actually,
to the
you know
third.
what? What happens in Peyote, and I wasn't clear here, there is no B, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
In Peyote, you're actually picking up 2 rows at the same time, your first 2 rows.
I see. Okay.
So yeah, so skip that. And
So
this
B
is
is-
where, yeah, this is where we actually create those upper and lower beads. My apologies for that.
No, that's fine. I kind of got hung up on that, so I'll try and catch
That's
up.
okay. That's okay. Now, it does show a stop bead.
Yeah.
And a stop bead is there just so the beads don't fall off the end. It stops the beads from falling off. For something this narrow, many people don't use it. That's up to you if that's what you want to do. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. I'm going to just very quickly do one in the other colors. We have lots of time, and you just may be able to do the second one as well. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this using silver and blue. So when you use thread, it's always good to stretch it out just to get the kinks out of it, and you know how it's sort of comes off the roll just a little bit wavy. It's always good to stretch it. Helps take the tension out as well. So just as a review to start. So let me see, move this over. Okay, so again, we're picking up 6 delica beads. I'm using silver as A and the blue is B. So 1A, 1B, 2 of the A's, and 1B and 1A. That gives me a total of 6 beads on there. So that is my width. I'm bringing it down to the edge, leaving about an 8-inch tail. And I'm going to, I tend to, as I say, hold it in my hands because there isn't a whole lot to hold on there. Okay. So just as it says here in number 3, I'm picking up 1A and I'm stitching into, try to get my hand and this in, into the second bead, like that. I'm skipping the first, stitching into that first blue one. Pull it through. And if, for example, your beads don't quite sit on each other like that, just give them a nudge with your nail or your needle. There we go. I'm picking up, okay, in 3B, 1A, and I'm stitching into the fourth bead. So 1, 2, 3, 4, into that silver bead right there. My last one, in 3B, I'm stitching into, picking up 1B and stitching it into the last bead or the sixth bead. And again, that's how you establish peyote like that. As I say, it's a little more fiddly when it's small. We're going to turn the work and we just continue like what we've been doing. So with an A, and a B. So I'm just going to very quickly stitch this, keep my hand in place so you can see. Put this out of the way. Now you know why I showed you on the big beads. Has anyone done peyote stitch before?
I did.
You have, okay. It's not too bad, is it, Jaga?
It's easy. It's very easy.
Yeah, it's just getting used to the size of beads. Holding your thread in your hand as well, like I'm doing with my non-dominant hand, also helps your tension, which a lot of beginner people do have troubles with. If the tail thread gets caught up, don't worry, just pull it out. You'll be fine. To pick up a bead first.
And what I do is I roll it and put a tape on it.
Oh, so your beads don't fall off?
No, the tail.
Oh, the tail, okay.
I roll it and put the tape, so it will be bulky and it won't get tangled.
Okay, so it works that way, does it?
Yep, it helps me a lot.
Good. Okay. Yeah, once you get used to it, it does go up pretty quick. And because the beads are so small, you can create some amazing patterns with
I think I
peyote.
need a third hand here.
I know, it's nuts at times, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Two, 4, 6. One. Oops. Now, I've accidentally put one put the wrong color there. If you make a mistake, not an issue. Let me, I see Elise, you're struggling to see. Okay, so I've made a mistake there. Best thing to do, take your needle off your thread. Just take the needle, pull it up, and take it off. It's easy to make a change. Now, if you find your mistake back in further, it's a little more difficult. But it's easy, you know, if you're just finishing a row, just to change it out a little that way. I always take the needle off and try not to unstitch it, because if you catch the thread, then you're going to have grief. Okay, and one more. Okay, so that strip is done. How's everybody doing? Have you been able to do your strip as yet? Whereabouts are you on your strip?
I'm slow.
That's okay. It's not a race. We're good. We have time. Now, I want to show you a couple of things that you can do with things. This was one of the first patterns I ever did, and it's a music notes. So you can actually get quite creative with this. You can also create bands and roll them around something and do what's called zipping up. So this was just a plain bracelet, and I put bands of peyote stitch around some of the plain beads. So I've got the, this is on Beadfx, beadfx.com. And there's a new feature in the blogs called Project of the Week. So this is the past project from Saturday. So, but how we're doing this is exactly how this is done. It's just using a pattern, that's all. And the pattern is actually in the instructions on the blog. And that's Beadfx Pattern of the Week. Okay. So I'm going to move on just a little bit. Once you have gone through and created your full piece, what we're going to do now is to create a loop at the top, and that loop is what's going to hold our, so a loop there and a loop at the bottom, and that's what's one of the top loop is going to hold our ear wire, and the bottom one is going to hold a jump ring and crystal. So how do we do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's zoom in. Let's move this one out of the way and go back to my big piece here so you can see. And of course, I'm tangled up. Hold on. There we go. Okay. It does not matter which is top or bottom because they're both exactly the same. What we want to do, your thread on either, if you look at your pieces, they're coming out the end. One is at the top and one is at the bottom. What we want to do is to move our thread, travel through the beads so that our thread comes out near this middle one right here. Okay, zoom in just a little bit. So what we do is I'm literally going to stitch through, I'll hold this so it's, and I'm going to go into the beads and literally stitch through the beads. And I can do that, and you actually won't see the thread. You'll notice that I am going from one bead to the next, So the bead is coming out of the purple. I'm just going into the bead right beside it. And you can go top or bottom, it doesn't matter. If I went in from this bead to this bead, then I would see the thread. So you don't want to do that. But it doesn't take very long at all to get over to this upper bead right here. And there we have traveled our thread and coming out this bead right here. Okay, so I want to create a loop of beads. And in my instructions, I say to pick up 3 of the color A, which in my case are the gray, or sorry, 6 color A. So let me just zoom out so you can see my board a little bit better. I'm picking up 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So my thread is coming out this bead, and it's this bead that I'm going to create a loop around. So I've got my 6 beads there that I've just picked up, and I'm going to go into that same bead, but on the other side. So my thread's coming out on one side, I'm stitching into the same bead on the other side. And when I pull it through, I get tangled up in everything. Come on, out of the way. There we go. There is sort of a loop. What we're going to do is we're going to go through these beads again. This is a stress point. There's not a lot of weight on this at all. But by going through it another time anyways, then that will form up a little bit better. And it's going to form up better when it's a small piece anyhow.
I was going to ask that, Pam. It's Lee, if they're a bit wonky looking because they're so big.
Yes, they are. So if you take a look here, it's not as wonky. Yeah, and I will do the same thing on the smaller piece, but this gives you an idea of what you can see better. Okay, we're going to pretend that's round. Okay, so to finish, I don't need to do anything more with this thread. So I'm going to do what they call burying the thread. And to do that, I'm going to travel through beads, just like I've done before, to get to that point. And when you tighten it, you see it does go better. Okay. There we go. And again, just travel. Thread catches on everything. There we go. Now, to lock this, we don't do knots in peyote. There's really no place to knot it, but what you can do, come on, my needle bent a little bit here. Good. There we go. You can actually go around like a circle. So I'm coming out this one. Let's go up the one right beside it. So I'm going up that other purple one there. And when you pull tight, the thread actually does go between the rows there. And by continuing around that in a circle, I've actually locked that thread. My needle is not going to see another project. Okay. There we go.
The valiant sacrifice.
I know, eh? This is I'm hard on needles. I turn needles into roller coasters really easily. Okay, so at this point I've locked it. There's no knots. It's always good to do a few extra rows. But for the sake of tonight, I'm going to say that's buried. I'm going to grab my scissors. Where did my scissors go? They're probably smack dab in front of me. I can't see them. There we are. And at this point, you just cut it really, really close. Okay? I'm now going to do the exact same thing to get over and do a loop over here. And that's what's going to be. The loops are not quite centered. We'd have to do another style of peyote. However, for something this small, it's not going to be noticeable. What we would do is something called odd count peyote, which has got a weird turn in it and a little more complicated than what we can do in an hour. Okay, so I'm going to, again, travel through the beads. I'm coming out this hole. I'm just going to go one step down and just travel through. So I'm coming out right here. Now, I think I told you on one do 5, on the other do 6. It really doesn't matter. Both will give you a loop. If you find the 6 is too floppy, then by all means do a 5 bead loop. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so there's my loop. Let's go through it again. And you can see it actually does form a better circle. And again, I'm going to bury the thread. And to do that, in and out of beads. And you don't have to go to the edge. You can go anywhere you want, just as long as you don't see the thread. Pull it tight, let it bury itself between the columns. Now just do this in sort of the round. Okay. For tonight, that'll be fine. This won't turn into an earring or anything. And trim. Okay. So that is the beading. That's done. And then what I would do with the small one, I would do this very same thing. And to finish it, all I'm going to do, I'll get these other little beads out of the way. I've got the little briolettes, and I have these little 4x5 oval jump rings. You can use round ones. It doesn't matter. I just happen to like the look of the oval. They're not quite as harsh. Sometimes it sort of blends in a little bit better. Now, the opening of an oval jump ring is on the side, right there. As it's not on the end, it's on the side. So to open, let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better, move the crystal. You want to use 2 pairs of pliers. It could be not round nose, flat nose, chain nose, or in this case, bent nose. Let me see if I can get this down so you can see better focus. Okay, you can see the opening is just at the top there. I've got pliers on either side. I'm going to bring one part up and the other part down so that I've created a hook. I don't want to open it so that the roundness becomes flat. So to finish this, all I would do is pop this on. You do want to make sure that you use a fine, oops, not in, there we are, sorry about that. You want to just make sure that it's fine enough to fit onto the briolette like that. And then I'm going to put this on the smaller of the hook like that. A little hard to see at times because it's fiddly. To close it again, I'm going to take my pliers on that other side and bring both parts together. Let me see if I turn this so you can see it better. It's just bringing the two parts together, making sure there's no space at the top of the jump ring, and that's joined like that. Okay, of course it'll look better when I put it on something that's blue and silver. Now to do the top part, I'm going to get I've got ear wires here. This particular style is called a shepherd's hook. You can use any style you want. Getting a little tarnished. Okay, so this one, the opening is here, it's on the inside. And we're going to open this the same way as you would open a jump ring. Hold it on one side. I'm not going to use a pair of pliers on the other. I'm just going to lift it so that it's creating a hook. And you can see the hook a little bit there. All you need to do, this is the outside. Make sure if you've got it wrong side around, that hooks it on just like that. Let's turn it around again. And I'm just going to close this hook, oops, just like that, there. And that earring is finished. So what I would do is certainly do another one in the colors that I want, which is going to be the blue and silver, and just finish it off that way, and you're all set. Any questions? Any comments, questions, anything you would like reviewed? That looks great, Jaga. Good for you.
All done.
All done. Wonderful.
Pam,
Elise, how did you do? Good.
I'm
Good.
just wondering, Pam, the one that you put the briolette on, it looks,
Yes.
are those 15s?
No, those are 11s.
Oh, the other one looks bigger beside it. It just looks wider.
It's the color.
Oh, the colors. Okay.
It's the color. Yeah. When something is shiny, it sort of throws it off a little bit.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Yes.
for me, my jump ring didn't go through the top hole teardrop. So I did a bead ring.
Okay. That's perfect. Yeah, there's more than one way to do it for sure. Okay. Any questions? Anything at all? We're good?
What are we doing next week?
Well, we have a few minutes yet, so let me show you next week. So next week we're going to learn brick stitch, and we're going to learn how to do a pendant, and it's a heart. Let me just move some of this out of the way so you can see better. So what we're going to do next week is a pendant like that. This is using the same kind of beads, but in a bigger size. Actually, it would really help.
What
Let me
size
just,
you need?
size 8. Size 8. So let me just go back to spotlight this again. There we go. So these are cylinder beads. They are the exact same bead as these other tiny ones. They're just a different size, that's all. So you can use these size 8, or if you don't happen to have them, that's okay. You can use regular seed beads in either a size 8, that's here, or even a size 6. And it's just going to be proportionally bigger. Both of these are done the same way. The reason it looks different is because we're using different beads. That's the only difference. So what you'll need are some beads, a couple of jump rings, and some chain. And you can make the chain as long or as short as you want. You also need, sorry, I've got my budgie on my hand. See, there he is.
Camera shy.
Oh, yes. He's like, okay, I want to be what you're doing, but I don't want to be seen. What you need is a couple of jump rings that, oh, he's coming over. And I use a lobster clasp. That's a 12. Nothing like being photobombed by a budgie.
Yeah. What kind of thread do you use, Pam?
You can use any thread. So you can use the KO, Hannah, it doesn't matter for this.
Okay.
You don't actually see the thread.
Okay.
So it's all inside there. Okay, so that is next week's project. The week after that, we're going to learn right angle weave, and we're going to create sort of a pendant. Well, it's not sort of a pendant, it's a pendant. And we're going to learn how to do it, to create this part, and then we're going to embellish it. So this is using size 8 seed beads and some 4mm drucks. That's the round part here. You can also use fire polish or some, you could even use a bigger seed bead if you want, a size 6 seed bead. And we've got some size 11s in there too. Again, we're going to have a jump ring. Okay, and you can get chain. This happens to be a purchase chain, but you would just have, the same thing on the ends, jump rings and a lobster clasp. Now I've sent Joanna all the stuff for October. I've got 3 more projects lined up and she's got all of those. What else am I doing? I am doing, let me just cancel the spotlight video. I'm going to just put it onto gallery view so I can see everybody. I've got, what else is coming up? We're going to be doing a mask chain. So this is when you're out and about and you're wearing a mask and don't need to put it on, you can just put it on here. And this happens to be on stretchy, so you can wear that, and then when you go into a store, then you can put the mask on. So when you're in a car or something and you don't need it, sorry?
Don't forget to wash your chain.
Wash your chain. There are some mask chains that sort of hold the mask open. This one actually folds it closed, which to me, Lee, you would know this better than I would, I think would help keep the mask cleaner.
Yeah, I think when you're wearing when people are wearing a mask in public, I'm a nurse, it's the inside of your mask that's dirty. When I'm wearing my mask in the hospital, it's more about the outside of my mask, people that you don't want to touch. So if it's being held together, that's better. But I would just say it might be a good idea to think about beads that you could just give a wipe over and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, these are really inexpensive glass beads. You can use large seed beads. If you want to use size 6s, that's perfect. If you've got a stash of beads, we're going to do it on stretchy stuff, and it should be online very shortly. It's called a mask chain, and I'm also going to show you how to do it with regular chain as well. So you'll have 2 styles. So yeah, there's a couple of things coming up. So yeah, take a look. I can't believe I'm now thinking of November. Is there anything that people would like to learn? I'm just going to, anything at all that you'd like to learn or find more about? So we're going to, for the seed bead series, we're going to be looking at flat spiral. We're going to be looking at, I'm trying to remember. I just did them all. Anyways, they're really neat. That's coming up. So yeah.
Did you do you have a class on rings? Like a ring?
A beaded ring?
Yeah.
I could see if what we could do, something that'll work up quickly. Yeah. What you can do, okay, India, is when you for example, as you're doing, let me put my other camera back on. Okay, and spotlight this. Okay, so what you can do when you are stitching something, you can just make this longer so that it fits around your finger. And then join the two sides together. Let me zoom in on this. So, oops, the other way. See how these are jagged one on top of another? What happens, you can zip it together. So you can go from upper to upper and stitch back and forth and turn this into a ring. So you can actually create something long enough to go around your finger. I'm looking for the, I don't see it. Oh, here we are. So for example, something like this.
Sorry, just pull it up a bit, Pam. That's it.
Yeah. I could make this round enough or long enough to zip up around my finger like that. So the same technique. And as I say, you can zip up by joining upper bead to upper bead. Okay.
What kind of thread would you be using? You'd have to do it like an elasticized, would you?
No, you don't. You can fit it, you can do it to fit your finger. You can actually do it and then it'll slide off. So you might want to just be aware. Just be aware if you're wearing it, don't wash your hands with it. So it's not always, these particular beads aren't good in water. There are some that are what they call opaque. If you have something that's silver lined, don't get it wet if you don't have to. But yeah, you can size it on your own finger so it comes up and off as well. So yeah, there's amazing things that you can do with peyote. When you get really into it, you can actually create boxes and stars and everything else. This is more than an hour class. I'm actually planning to teach this at Bead Effects in November. So this was my first time doing this particular box. It's my own design. So I'm going to be making another one and then writing down the instructions as I do it.
Really pretty.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, it's the same, very same technique as what this is. So yeah.
Were you planning on doing anything
About which, sorry?
beaded beads?
I could try, yeah. I could say about some beaded beads.
That would be cool.
Yep, yep, some very simple beaded beads. Let me see what I can do. And yeah, there's lots of options out there for sure. Any other questions? Anything else you'd like to learn? No? Okay. Well, I know that when Alexandra sends you the video, I think she's also going to include my